In the previous video, we talked about Pythagorean Theorem and we took some notes. So if you've just joined us, go back and catch up on that. Get your note card out if you've done that with me. And let's do some prep work for Pythagorean Theorem. Remember your formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, get your notebook out and your pencil out. You'll need a calculator. And I want to show you a few things before we get into working some problems. So write this down. So you have 3 squared. Now pay attention to how I've written that. I did not, watch what I did not do. Did I do this? No, I did not do that. Okay, did I do this? No, I did not do that. So I know it sounds like, you know, you're just being really ticky and aggravating when I tell you that this number has to be up in the air, but it does. Okay, it can kind of come back later and cause some problems for you. So I want you to put your pencil under the 3 and make a little caret. Remember what an exponent is? An exponent is a shorthand way to multiply. So what this is code for, by the way, we say this as 3 squared, not 3 2. 3 squared, and it's 3 times 3. That's what that stands for. 3 times 3. So not 3 times 2. So it's 3 times 3, which of course is 9. But I want you to get your calculator and let's review how to put that in on the calculator. So turn it on. Don't worry about clearing it to get all this stuff off. It's fine. Just make sure you don't have anything on your current line that you're working on. So 3 squared. Hit your 3. Now look over here to the left. Do you see to the left of the 7 is the x squared? That is your button to square anything. Notice how you get your exponent pops up and your cursor's waiting right there for you to continue, which that's all we're doing. So we'll just hit enter and there's your 9. Okay, so let's just do a couple just to refresh your memory. So put your 12 squared. All right, now that 2's got to be up in the air. And go to your calculator, even though you may know it, which is fine, which is great actually, but I'm just reviewing your calculator skills here. So 12 x squared, enter. And of course it's 144. So these are doubles. So that's 12 times 12. That is not 12 times 2. That's something that's worth a practice on. And some of you are my students, so you can go to your work on that and practice doing your squares for that. Okay, now let's continue on. And let's do a variable. Say you got a squared if a equals 3. Okay, because this is where we're going with this, is into our Pythagorean work where we have the formula and we have a number, and that number's got to be put in the formula. So that's called substitution. Remember that math word. So we want to substitute the 3 for the a and do whatever math is required. So what you do here is you write the 3 in the spot where the a is and you keep the squared, because that is that is a math operation. An exponent is a math operation like adding or subtracting. And then of course you take it to your calculator or do it in your head. Knowing that you're doing this, you don't have to write this every time, but I want you to know that that means this. So of course you get 9. So let me give you just a couple more. I'll write them down. You work them. B squared if b equals 7. All right, so that would be 7 squared, which is 49. All right, what about c squared? See, we're just doing our letters of our formula here. C squared if c is, if c is 4, okay? So then that 4 comes in for c, you square it, put it in your calculator if you need to. It's 4 times 4, it's 16. So that's kind of some prep work for where we're going. Now we're not quite done, okay? So you know how to square things, and that's good, and you know how to substitute things, that's good. Let's just erase that and continue with our prep work. Now, as we work through this formula, we're going to have to be able to use our algebra. Okay, for those of you working on your high school diploma, we've been working on algebra to get right here, to get to these formulas so we can use algebra to solve the formula. So let me give you a little teeny weeny equation. So what if your equation looks like this? B squared equals 121. All right, so if you've followed along with me to do algebra, remember the first step is to draw a line down your equal sign. We always start there. Then the next step is to put your pencil on the variable. This is where you're looking. You're not looking at the 121. The next question is, what operation is your variable in? Okay, well, my variable is squared. That is an operation. So remember, we have to do the inverse operation. So we've talked about in the past, if it's being added, then we want to subtract. If it's being multiplied, then we want to divide. Okay, well, so adding to our little arsenal of opposite operations, if you are squaring your variable, how do you undo a square? You undo a square with a square root. Remember that? So this is something we have to know. When you see it in algebra, this is an equation. Okay, it's very short, but it's still an equation. So how do I undo that? That's not division, because this is shorthand for multiplication, but it's not just multiplication. So we can't use division. We've got to use a square root. And when you see something taken to the square root, how do you undo that? Then you need to square that. So the root and the exponent are opposite operations, and that takes some practice. And hopefully you've practiced your exponents before this video so that you're a little bit familiar. So coming back onto our equation, let's work it. So I put my pencil on my variable. I see that it's raised to the second power. It's squared. Practice saying that to yourself. That is not B2, that's B squared. How do I fix it? How do I undo it? I take the square root, and you have to put it right there. And let me show you how to write a square root. It's like a number 7 with a division sign, okay? So practice drawing a square root. All right, so remember in our algebra, what you do to one side, you've got to do to the other. So you have to just kind of squish your square root in right there. Now, for my students, I want you to physically cancel the square and put a little cross off that square root sign. And what that does is B is now free, okay? Bond has been paid, it's out of jail, and it comes down. Remember how we cancel and bring down. Now B is finished because it's by itself on the equal sign. And this is simply a math problem. The square root of a number is a math problem. Grab your calculator. So let's do it. How do you use the square root? Well, it's above, the square root is above the squared sign. So you have to use, it's in green, so hit your second key, hit x squared, and there's your square root, okay? And we put the number in, 121. Now notice your cursor's still under the square root sign. So if you needed to continue adding or something, you would need to move this cursor over before you could hit an add sign. Otherwise, the sign would be underneath the square root sign like this. You see how that addition sign's under there? And that square root sign's just getting bigger. So I don't want to do that. I want to move it over. Then I can hit enter. Okay, and it's 11. And that's it. It's a very simple problem. Let's do a couple more very quickly so you can practice. So what if you've got c squared equals 25? All right, this is an equation. So line down the equal sign. Pencil on the variable. What operation is it in? It's being squared. How do I undo a square? I take the square root. So right here, just take your square root. What you do to one side, do to another. Cancel, bring down. Do your math. Square root of 25, let me refresh your memory on the calculator. Second, x squared, 25. Because I'm finished, I can just hit enter. Otherwise, you need to move it over. And your answer is 5. All right, let's do another one. What if it's a squared equals 36. Hopefully you're noticing that all my answers are perfect squares. Okay, this is an equation. Pencil down, line down the equal sign, pencil on the variable. What operation is it in? It's being squared. How do I undo a square? I take the root. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Jump back across and cancel. Don't do your math until you cancel and bring your variable down by itself on that side of the equal sign. Now you can do your math. If you want to do this in your head, you ask yourself, what number times itself, it's got to be a perfect square, what number times itself equals the number under the sign? So what number times itself equals 36? Well, 6 does. So 6 is my answer. Okay, so there's some practice. Now we'll go on and do some Pythagorean theorem.